through sport. In sport, the margins for success are very minimal. So 1% is the difference between being a world champion and being, say, ranked 50 or 60 in the world. If you think of the winner of the 100-meter gold, the 100-meter final, the gold medalist, you're looking at 9.6 seconds, whatever it is. Slightly underneath that, you're not even qualifying for the tournament. So the psychological aspect of winning is very minimal, and the same applies to business and life as well, really. It's just inches, the difference between, you know, up there or just coasting along. So one of the key things is, where the winning formula is concerned, the key thing, how many people, has everyone set goals before? Anyone ever set goals? Okay. Do you know people who've set goals in the past, and they've set goals and they've probably been disappointed when they've actually achieved the goal, thought they've achieved their goal? And one of the reasons for that is because sometimes people like the idea of doing something. They like the idea of being a pop star, the idea of being a football player or whatever it is, but then the actual doing is a different matter altogether, because you've got to get off your ass and work hard to do anything in life, really. So if it were easy, everyone would do it. A lot of people ask me, because of my NLP background and they have an understanding of modelling excellence, could you turn anyone into Tiger Woods? Well, or anyone into anything they want to be. Well, there's got to be a desire there. There's got to be a want. There's got to be a driver there that you want to do. Anyone can improve. Anyone can go from where they are to a better level. Yet how far we go is determined by, yeah, of course, you know, there is some element of natural ability and physiological differences that do help us get and achieve certain things. Some of us are physiologically better adapted to speed events or different events. Yet in saying that, ultimately, the key aspect is desire. Okay, so the first part of the winning formula, which is important, is to find out where a goal is concerned is what is important to the individual or the individuals or the person. Value. The way I would describe a value or values, it's almost like a compass, finding our way where to go. They're our goals. They're intrinsically important to us, not to anybody else, to us. So we're not living anybody else's dream. In my experience of working in sport for many, many years, I see a lot of parents take their young children to sporting teams, and they're looking to fulfill their own dreams for the youngsters and this, that and the other, but really they don't really want to be there sometimes, and you can see that. It stands out a mile, and a lot of people kind of think, well, I like the idea of doing that. It's the thought behind the thought. Or if I become a footballer, I'm going to get all the trappings that they think are going to come with being a footballer, become a pop star, or whatever it is. So they pursue one thing after another, really. And what we'll do here, I want you to think with the exercise. So practical application is the best way to learn. And if you pick one thing up away from the seminar that we're doing here, then it's job done, really. I want you to think, a bit of thought provocation, what's important to you? Okay, so when people talk about values, it's easy to simplify it. It's just what's important to you. Okay, so I want you to think for a couple of minutes and fire away and using your pens and think, what is important to you? What do you want out of life? Okay, and what makes that important? And that's a good place to start. If you're coaching someone, or we're coaching ourselves, or we decide that we want to embark on a goal, what actually is important to us will save us a lot of heartache, a lot of time, a lot of effort and energy by establishing what exactly is important to us. And it's a difficult, well, it can be a difficult question for a lot of people. And the first thing I ask people when I'm coaching people on a one-to-one basis, whether it be business or sport or therapy, whatever it is, the first thing I ask them is, well, what exactly do they want? And a lot of people will come through the door and they'll give me a list of what they don't want. Well, I don't want to feel down no more, I don't want to feel depressed. Well, what do you want? What exactly do you want? How do you want to feel? And one of the key ways to do that, I ask them, well, where is your present state of mind? Where would you like your desired state of mind be? And what would that give you as an outcome? So a present state could be, okay, I feel down at the moment. How do you want to feel? I want to feel great. Well, are there times that you do feel great throughout the day? Well, there certainly is. Regardless of who you are, what you do, there's going to be times that you feel okay. And by feeling okay or great or better, what would that give you as an outcome? And that's the key factor in terms of deciding how and what we want to achieve, what we want to be. But equally, there's got to be an importance to us. That outcome has to mean something. If the outcome doesn't mean anything, then is it going to be worth pursuing? Will it stand up having pursued the outcome? And the key thing is, where the outcome is concerned, is deciding, well, what's important to us in regards to the outcome. So the person who wants to be in a relationship, what's important to them about being in a relationship, or achieving a goal, or buying that new car, or having all that money. Because I'm sure we can all, and we've all heard plenty of stories in even the press lately about people who've had all the fame, they've had all the money, yet they've still sabotaged their life. Okay? They've still sabotaged their life. And I was asked in the radio station interview recently about someone who famously sabotaged their life, about my forces situation. Without knowing the person personally, I don't know. But I can think of a lot of people who pursue something and they get there and they realise, well, it's not exactly what they thought it was meant to be. And by finding out your value base and your intrinsic value before you embark on an outcome or a goal or anything, it's quite useful. It can work as a driver, it can help us get to where we want to get to, but it can also help us serve us in a way that, okay, is it worthwhile going for? Having worked out what's important to you, order of importance, from say 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And this could be a matter of context as well. Okay, someone actually, I did an exercise with someone recently. They modelled me as a coach, as an exemplar, and I told them the strategies that I would use as a coach, what I would do to help people get to where they wanted to get to and help move their lives forward. And I gave them some information, and they came back to me and said, okay, on what level, what level of importance do you place your values related to coaching? And I said, well, it's a matter of context. Okay, if I'm working with young performers, then for me, the priority is about development, helping them develop and nurture them to be the best they can be, and results aren't really paramount initially. If I'm working with elite full-time athletes at senior level, then it's winning. Winning is the most important thing, because winning brings everything else, like the security, the contracts and everything else. And what I'd like to do as an exercise, think about what you write down, the things that are important to you, and number them from a hierarchy from 1 to 5. If you haven't got 5, it's okay. Just work with what you've got. So just a couple of minutes, think of what you wrote down recently and put it in a hierarchy of 1 to 5. If you can't get to 5, then just work with what you've got and go from there. Okay. Okay, so if you run with what you have for now, you can always go back and think about that, and you've got the format to work with thereafter. One of the most powerful exercises I do with the clients I work with, really powerful exercise that I work with, and I've adapted this from sport into life and business. In sport, over several years, to help people to move their career from one level to another level, I would use a profile, we call it performance profile. Okay, so in life, I've adapted a performance profile to meet life and business. And the areas really that we work with in sport are the predominant areas that are important to be successful. Well, what do you need to be successful in sport? Does anyone have any ideas in terms of what you would need to be? What do you think some of the qualities you have to have?
Discipline.
Okay, discipline, yeah.
Fitness.
Fitness, single-mindedness, yeah.
Stamina.
Stamina, yeah.
Consistency.
Consistency, yeah.
Motivation.
Motivation, definitely. All of those are right, yet they fall into categories. Consistency, motivation, confidence, focus, all fall into the psychological strategy, psychological area. Fitness falls into the fitness area, fitness to play the sport. So I might be fit to run around the block 10 times, yet I might not be fit to play a game of football for 90 minutes. The two are relative. Okay, so fitness for that specific sport. Now I might be fit in relation to doing one thing, yet maybe not for another sport. A rugby player might be fit to play their sport, yet they're not fit to play football because it has different demands. Okay, so psychology, fitness, tactical and technical are key elements of being successful in any sport. Yet the only way we're going to improve is if we identify where we want to be. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? So one of the things I do with my performers is, okay, well, where do you want to be? Who's the ultimate? So I did a session with an up-and-coming player recently, and we did like a visualization session, and I asked him I did the profile. I said, well, what areas do you want to improve? And he talked about his left foot. I said, okay, I want you to watch and find the best left-footed player there is in the world. And he told me who it was, and he studied him. He said he wanted to improve his defensive player, so go find the best defender you can find. And what we did do is I told him to model those people. They're your template of excellence. And I said, okay, now we want to work out where you are. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you are relative to your models of excellence? And he came up with a score from 1 to 10, with 10 being high. And I said, well, to get another notch in the road towards getting to 10, what do we need to do? And that helped us identify what we need to move forward. Because there's no point going out there and practicing every day if you're left foot without a strategy. You've got to have a strategy. There's no point going out there and leaving it to chance. A proper, focused strategy. Okay. And what we did do, we managed to find out these templates of excellence, and by doing that, we could work out where he felt he was in relation to them and what we could do moving forward. And by doing that, we accelerated his ability. And that's one of the keys in terms of work with athletes. Now, you can transfer that across to life as well. What we can do where life is concerned, well, what are some of the key fundamentals? What criteria do you think people use in relation to a successful life? What are the areas that people what areas of life make someone happy? What do people look for in life? What are the key fundamentals?
Health.
Okay, love,
Relationship, yeah.
health, yeah, relationship,
Family.
family, of course,
Friends.
of course. Now, all these areas are really important to us. So I've got here love, relationship, security, work, purpose, health, fitness, happiness, fulfillment. Some of them fall into the same category. Yet in saying that, we think about, okay, well, what's important to us was the first question. What is really important to us? And the reason for asking what was important to you is whatever was important to you in the highest category is probably worth spending the most time on. So if family is the number one thing on your list of importance, then if you're not spending time with your family, regardless of how successful you are, you're going to be pretty down, because that's what's important to you. If becoming very successful financially is really important to you, and you're spending all your time doing other things, then you're going to feel unfulfilled. So the key is really to spend as much time as possible on the areas that you highlighted as being the most important to you, and you'll feel balanced. Someone asked me once on a show a couple of years ago, what makes someone happy? Well, happiness is a state, really. Everyone's got their own criteria of happiness. Yeah, they asked me, well, how come you get the guy who's driving the local bus who's just completely happy with their life? And you've got the person who's got fame, fortune, money, everything you could ever imagine, turns to drugs and ultimately can kill themselves. Well, in the end, it's what's important to them, how they're living their lives based on their own value base, which is key. And one of the easiest ways to do that is exercise with them briefly, just to elicit basic core values in terms of the importance to us, and then make sure we immerse ourselves time-wise in the areas that are key for our own fulfillment. Yet we can break things down to another level. Is I talked about the performance profile in sport. Now we can adapt that into life as well. And if we isolate different aspects of life, then what we can do is score where we think we are in that area and where we want to be. Because the thing is, the trick is really, is we've been very heavily influenced by the media, what we see on TV, how people say we should be, and everything else that goes with that, really. And that might not mean a great deal to us deep down inside. But we are very heavily influenced by what we see and what goes on. And you've only got to look at people, people do things, and there's no real reason for doing what they do. They might pick up a magazine, they're told what clothes they should wear, what size they should be, what car they should drive, how many kids they should have. And the thing is, there's a criteria for dysfunctionality. And the news is, if we use that criteria for dysfunctionality, 99% of us will be dysfunctional people. So really, when you think about it, it's fictional really. And if we can sort of put that to one side and realise, actually we're human, we're going to mess up, we're going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. There's not a soul on earth. And we're going to have problems, because that's all part of life. We're going to have emotions as well. Okay, so until you're 6 foot under, you're going to come across various challenges. So rather than look for the easy way out, it's about bucking up and finding the strength of character to take on whatever comes your way, and keep going through, and finding answers. But one of the key ways to moving forward and getting that fulfillment and purpose is by looking at areas. So what I'd like you to do now, in the short time that we have, is, if we do nothing else, but maybe a bit of thought provocation, and if you do one thing as a result of the seminar, then it's job done. Think of where you are in these categories. So I've put them here on the sheet, for love, relationships, security, work, purpose, health, fitness, happiness, fulfillment. Think of where you are with 10 being high, 10 being where you want to be. 10 being where you want to be, on that scale of 1 to 10, how you would grade yourself in these various areas.
Is it important at this stage that 10 is where you want to be rather than 10 being the ultimate?
10 is where you want to be, and that's a good point you've made there, Carl, a very important point, because 10 is where you want to be, not where you feel you should be, based on an advert that you've seen on TV or a magazine that you've read, or based on what someone told you should be, where you would like to be. Because success is relative to each individual. Some people would class success as one thing, and something else. Some people would class happiness as one thing, something else really. What makes one person happy might not make somebody else happy. Okay, so I think it's relative to where you would like to be in that area, and that will change because your values change, your priorities change, your life changes. So where you were 5 years ago is different to where you are today. Where you'll be in 5 years will be different, no doubt, to where you are now. Things change all the time. We adapt to different situations. So keep where you feel you'd like to be, which is key. And one of the things that you could do, and as I said before, the time that we have, we can cover as much as we can. One thing to look at is, as an extension of what we're doing here, is when you're setting goals, being very specific about where you want to be. So if you decide that, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, for work, I'm at 6 or 7, and you decide to get to a 10, I'd like to be the director of the company where I work at, then you specifically decide what you want to do as a role, what that would give to you, how you would add to that, what qualities you have to do that, but also you can then embark on a plan to get there. And when you plan your week, your year, you plan your goals, then you can work towards achieving it in a way that you're not isolating one area. Because what do you think will happen if we spend all our time in one area? If we spend all our time in relationships, what will happen to everything else?
Comes from balance.
It does do. And then what happens if we just run across and spend all our time on work? Then you're going to come home to nobody, aren't you? Okay? And that's the key, really, getting a balance. How you get the balance is based on what is important to you. Then there's no regrets, you've lived your life. You can't complain in terms of how things go, really. You've made the decision, you set your stall out. The key thing is, if we focus on one area predominantly, then one will go out of balance. Then what will happen? We're fighting fires. It's like there's fires all in this room. I can run across and put one out there. Then I'm dealt with that, but then there's another one down there. Really, we've got to extinguish the whole thing. And the same applies here. It's about working on every area constantly. Some of the clients I work with are very successful in business. They'll talk about their relationships falling away, and they'll put a great front on. And yet, what I'll say, my first thought is, okay, well, how important is your relationship? Because if it's not important, then there's nothing I can do. There's nothing any of us can do. And there's no bother, is there? But if it is important to them, and they do want to make a success, it takes time, like anything else. And a client I had recently talked about how they'd been very successful in business and they were really happy and done really well in that area, yet they found that this area here was lacking. I says, well, how much time do you spend on work a week? Probably 78 hours a week. How many time are you spending on developing love and relationships? Probably a couple of hours, but that thing should just happen. It should just be. Well, I'm sure we all know that nothing just is. Nothing will just be. We've got to work on everything all the time and constantly improve and look for ways to improve it. That's the key sometimes, to reflect and think, well, where actually am I on these areas? And where do I want to be? And as a result of knowing where I want to be, how can I get there? Because you're in control. The one thing I learned from doing personal development from very early on, when I first came across all this sort of stuff, all those years ago, someone said to me, well, I was on my own crusade to change the world and help everybody I could ever help. And I used to get very frustrated sometimes, because some of the people I'd work with were quite resistant, because I work with a broad range of people. Like I mentioned before, I work with offenders as well. There was a resistance there. I was told, you go there, you do your work. I became frustrated. Well, you've got all this opportunity. Take it. What's going on? We've got all these techniques, all this technology. Go for it. Take the ball and run. Having had the balance of work with some really high profile athletes and some really driven business people, I thought, well, everyone should have that mindset. And I can transfer this across to everybody, and everyone will just go for it. But what I found to be the case is that who's the best person to help themselves? Themselves, definitely. And that's it, it comes from within. We can only help ourselves. No one can help us more than we can help ourselves, really. And the key thing is not necessarily accepting, yet playing the cards best we can. Because the first thing a lot of people will tell me, well, when I mention about responsibility, a lot of people say, well, how do you account for that person who walked across the road and got hit by the car, or the person who became ill and whatever else? Yet, in saying that, it's up to us to respond whichever way we can. Because somewhere on the line in life we're going to get hit, we're going to get a knockback, no matter who you are. We do, everybody does. And you look at people like the Lance Armstrongs of this world who went on and after cancer, he came back and he won 7 or 8 Tour de France's, and we see a number of people who sort of come back from adversity. Now, if they can do it, anybody else can. The story of, is everyone familiar with Helen Keller?
Yeah.
Okay, so she made something of her life, more than probably most people will do in society, and faced with massive adversity. So we can all serve a strong sense of purpose, regardless of who you are and what we do. The key is understanding where we want to be. And if the most important person to help us move forward is ourselves, we'll think about what can we do today. So coming along today is a positive, and obviously, whatever you do, a book or anything that you do, but the key is, in terms of moving forward and implementing anything that you've covered from the seminar, is think about, well, what could you do tomorrow, one thing different that will work towards you achieving what you want in these areas. I want you to think for just a couple of minutes what you could do tomorrow that you did have a necessary plan to do in these areas to move to that extra notch. And it's amazing how, when we sort of think about things, things sort of start coming our way, and different people have got different ways of putting things. I know people talk about the conscious awareness, I know people talk about manifesting, I know people talk about this, that and the other. I don't think if you sit in one spot with your hands out and you close your eyes, that anyone's going to drop a bag of money on your head. So where that is concerned, we've got to take action. Okay, there's no point sitting on your ass and thinking, yeah, this is going to come my way, and you know, the laws of attraction, this, that and the other. It's conscious awareness is a big thing. If we focus on something for long enough, then we'll draw it into our life because we're aware it's there. It's just like in this room, if you've got something positive on one side, something negative, depending on where you shine your torch is what you'll see, and the same applies to life. Okay, now the key thing is really where that's concerned is we've got to take action. Okay, it's all good and well having a dream, it's all good and well knowing what we're going to be, it's all good and well having all our values aligned, yet if we don't take the first step, we'll never get there. And it's amazing how so many people I've worked with for so many years, it's only taken one phone call, one email, okay, one book they've read, one course, and a massive change. The whole direction of their life has completely changed, unbelievably. You know, and anyone can do that. So I want you to think, you know, what you could do tomorrow based on these areas of your life that would make a difference. Okay.